the more you know about yourself, the more you like about yourself, the more you love about yourself, the more you will love your life, the more you will feel good about who you are.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Boxx. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Boxx.
Hey there, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners. Welcome back. I am Sarah Boxx, your host of the No Labels, No Limits podcast, where we're on this mission to help individuals, teams, and organizations think outside the box and move towards what they want and beyond limiting labels and beliefs, all so that each of us can have a profound impact in our own lives and then hopefully ripple out into the lives of others in a positive way. And we do it through this podcast by learning and staying curious about others and sharing accomplished and inspiring guests who have done the same in their own lives and pursued and accomplished personal and or both professional goals. So today, I'm really excited to introduce to you a new guest, Ryane LeCesne. She is the Advance Accelerator Coach, and she has nearly a decade of experience where she's empowered over 1,000 high-achieving women, particularly focusing on the unique challenges faced by high-achieving women. So I'm going to pause and just let you think about what are those challenges, because I bet you can relate to them. Now take it down a notch, or niche down a notch, not down, but just niche, get a little tighter. She even dives in to really think about the unique challenges faced by high-achieving Black women, which is another set within that. So whatever you can think of, whatever your race or ethnicity is, she's got a label and an understanding and a niche down on Black women. So I'm excited about that because I don't. If you look at us, we're different. She's a master at helping her clients overcome impostor syndrome, perfectionism, and distraction to unlock their full potential. And if you've ever followed the success blueprint but felt it lacked clarity or it just stuck for you, Ryane has transformational tools. So from the theoretical to the practical. So just join us, and she's going to talk about her evidence-based coaching process, explore the mindset shifts that led to her professional development and achievement. And I've got some other questions for you that we're going to talk about on the back end. So with that, let's formally welcome Ryane LeCesne to the No Labels, No Limits podcast. Good morning.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to your listening audience. Thank you, listener. I am excited to dive in with you. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to ask you, and I kind of asked you this before we hit record, but I'm always curious about people's morning routines or how they start their day. So what did you wake up thinking about or acknowledging today?
Yeah, and I really appreciate that question. It had caused me to pause for a moment, as you saw. So this morning, I remember having the themed thinking that, I have the capability. I have what I need. I have the stability. It was like the inner conversation, the inner dialogue was affirming that, because I was experiencing evidence of that, like all around me. It was like, oh, you are enough. Like, you are stable. You did make those plans. It is moving smoothly. Look at that happening. Which feels very nice, of course, in general. And it feels very nice as we're going to dive deep into today. I am more than sure, Sarah, with your brilliant, inquisitive curiosity, it feels nice as a person who doesn't necessarily have a history of that feeling. The history of the feeling, and the reason why I am a competent coach and it's my purpose, is because these are mindsets that I not only have had to overcome, but without very conscious practice are the shadows that sneak into my world, into my universe. And so it feels nice to, I don't want to say be on the other side, of fear, it is nice to be at a stage of life where my tools are embodied within me. The conversation is elevated and healthy to the point where there is greater time periods of peace and confidence. And that feels good. And that was evident today.
That is so
thank you for affirming that for me, because I wasn't sure if I was really conscious of that. So yes, that feels really good to say that out loud.
So beautiful. It's so easy. That inner dialogue can really throw us off. And, you talk about, and you are expert in helping people handle imposter syndrome, right? And a lot of that is dialogue.
I would really say that I'm like a inner dialogue coach. Fundamentally, that's really at the essence of what I help people do, is to shift, because the dialogue comes from your beliefs. And so I help people really shift the beliefs that cause that dialogue. And that dialogue absolutely matters, because that dialogue is the script that is running my life, that's running your life, that's running the listener's life. That dialogue is the programming that we're operating under, whether we like it, we don't like it, whether we're conscious of it, unconscious of it. We would take a survey and even agree or disagree with it. It doesn't matter. It is running your life. And until we become aware and then become responsible and then learn to become responsive to that dialogue, it, one, runs the show, and two, for most human beings, it's laden with trauma, quite frankly. So it's like a re-traumatization of self, and then also a perpetuation of a negative feedback loop that we can't seem to get out of. And so, yet we can, with the shift of beliefs, which cause a shift of inner dialogue.
I'm going to tell you right now, I am so full of gratitude for you. And normally I interview people, I'm really I'm into it, right? I love talking to people and learning, but there's something about what you're sharing today that there's a depth to it, right? So I'm saying this for myself to pay attention, but I'm also saying it for listeners. Do not just listen to the words that are being said here. There's a deeper heart center to this that will elevate us all. As we continue. Yeah, I'm feeling very emotional about what you're sharing. That feels good. I'm a 5 on the Enneagram, so I can compartmentalize like nobody knows.
Right.
Nobody's business.
Yes, got it.
And usually I do for podcasts. But I do want to say, how did you get from, give us a picture of your journey. How'd you get from A to where you are today with whatever letter you would put that in, right?
Right. So I could answer it in a couple different ways. I think in the various ways of answering, we give little snippets. And then I'm going to get real direct with where the business came from and where coaching and mindset specifically intersected. But I could say, for instance, that it started in my family. My father, without going too deep in the portal, but for certain, my father is a inquisitor of the mind, mindset, Stephen Covey, all this was something he really wanted to understand for his own, I think, personal quest of transformation. And my mom is very, very wonderful at developing people and at seeing the vision for someone and helping them get there. So the business is that in essence. It's mindset, it's goal orientation, it's understanding yourself, along with really helping people see who and what they are and their bigger vision for themselves and the intersection of that. I could also say it's from my schooling and that I went to all-girls school. So I'm really focused. I loved your intro, Sarah. I've never heard it quite so understood from the heart, quite frankly, that it is women specifically, because each culture, and men and women have a distinct culture amongst themselves. Each culture has their own nuances. And the nuances that I know and study and am immersed in are women. And because I am in the body of a Black woman, it is from the perspective of a Black woman. And the way that you cascaded that was so lovely, and so true. So I could say that. And then I went to Spelman College, which is a historically Black women's college. So it could be that, that could start there. That's part of that is true to my work. But where it really intersected is this point in my life where I was in a passion project that I called Inspire Sunday Brunch, which has a whole evolution to it, how I came to that. But what it was a platform where I was talking to my network of women about personal branding, but I was not about goal setting, about vision boarding, about all kinds of different topics. And I was the speaker. And it was like a fun platform. And I charged for it, for basically 0%, like what it cost to run this thing. And it was, I worked at a nonprofit. It was I was doing it as something fun and experiential. Then I decided that I was going to leave my career. And this is, I think, important because I left feeling undervalued, overworked, squeezed out of the feeling squeezed within myself. But what I now know is, and I think this is important for the listener, is that truly means I and you, if you're feeling that way, have outgrown where you are. I know that now. It felt
it doesn't feel that way in the moment.
Oh, does it? It felt heart-wrenching and very sad, very
and soul-sucking.
Soul-sucking. It's exactly what it felt like. And at that time, and when you have those moments, often there's things that open for you too. So what opened was start your own business, do your own thing. And I did. I made the big leap into entrepreneurship. And I wasn't certain what exactly I was certain that I was going to be helping individuals with, I thought, personal branding, with communications. I had a background in that. But what formulated coaching and mindset was I got an opportunity from my alma mater, Georgetown, to take a career development workshop with a coach. I had never done this before. This was about 2014. I'd never met a coach before, and it was a woman. It was 5 or 6 women. And the question that she asked that was pivotal was, do you speak to yourself as if you were your own best friend? And the answer was a clear no for me. I had the feeling that Brene Brown talks about, Dr. Brene Brown, that feeling that washes over you. It was shame. And it was very clear, oh my gosh, I suffer from whatever this is, and I have to help people figure this out. That was my intersection with coach. And I took her class, and she became my mentor, and I fell divinely into coaching. So it was this intersection of these two things, this business I had that was around coaching and the understanding, coaching, this is what I'm going to do. I went back to school to coach, and now I'm a coach who's certified, and I have this business that's actually LLC'd. And now I am at a point where people talk about ripping the Band-Aid off. It was the cast came off of broken bones I didn't even know were broken, of impostor syndrome, perfectionism, and this term that I coined called distractionism that we'll definitely get into, that suddenly I was riddled with as this business owner who didn't know how to run a business, who was quite frankly very good at coaching. So it was very chaotic. That's something to definitely talk about. And yet I really learned to work my own process. And that 8-step process has gotten me to exactly where I am this morning, where I understand my life is actually working for me. My business is actually working for me. I am working for me. I value me. Those imposter syndrome, perfectionism, distractionism mindsets I bump up against. And at this point, the inner work works, and it works so much that I can process through those things in every day. They're not such stumbling blocks.
Well, they're more hey there, old friend, distractionism. I see you. Let's move on.
Yeah.
That
feels good on this side.
Yeah. So let's get into detail. And I'm very interested in how you help clients and the people you work with kind of grapple with those 3 things. Can you define each of them in the way that you use them? And then let's talk about how you help people grapple with them.
Absolutely. So the first is imposter syndrome, which is this idea that, and kind of an internal dialogue, that no matter what my resume says, no matter my life experience, no matter how well educated I am, experienced I am, I have a constant nagging feeling that I'm going to be caught or labeled as a fraud. I'm going to be seen not knowing. Someone's going to call me out as not really belonging here. And so there's an angst there around that. That is a twin sister to perfectionism. It slides into perfectionism because then the self says, well, if I'm perfect, right? Not if my pencils are lined up, not perfect like that. Not my nails are always done, but it is if I am perfect, if I know all the answers, if I can be seen as like the go-to for everything and everything is 100% correct, I'll be protected and I won't be seen again as this slipping back into fraud. So they like ping pong within each other. And then there's this third piece that I've coined as distractionism, which I'm going to be very clear is, quite frankly, undiagnosed, unmanaged ADHD neurodivergence. And I've called it distractionism before 2022 when I knew and understood and was diagnosed with ADHD myself. So for 5 years, I had been calling it that because that was as it was presenting in my life and presenting in my client's life. And this mindset, so going back to this idea of like perfectionism sliding into distractionism. So going back to something as feeling trite as like having my nails painted. Well, there's this idea that if I show up perfectly, nails painted, hair coiffed, like then I'm buffered from what's on the inside, that I'm not enough. But I can't ever get my nails painted. I can't ever get to that level of detail because I'm always distracted. I'm always in a million places. And I look at my nails and it's a symbol to me that I can never quite get that far. I can never get that deep. So, because I'm always distracted. Now sliding into distractionism and how the three kind of interplay to each other. So distractionism this idea of distractionism is like, I have so many things that I'm focused on. I go down so many portals. I don't really trust myself. I'm very sensitive. I question because I lose things. I question, am I smart? I question, maybe I'm just lazy. I can't quite wrap my arms around my goals. I can't quite figure out time, but I've got all this PhD behind my name or doctor or, attorney, whatever it happens to be, baker, coach, teacher. And now I'm sliding back into impostor syndrome. But if I were only perfect, but I get so distracted. So it just,
it's a negative loop.
And so I help people to do a couple of different things. One, to become aware of that loop and become aware of what's happening from self-awareness. Number two, it is and this is actually going through my 8 steps. So number one is to unlock their brilliance. So much of what's happening is that this person is in this web around something that they want. I want to start a business. I want to grow in my nonprofit. I want to expand in my career, but I'm trapped in these 3 things that are keeping me in this web: distractions, imposters, and perfectionism. I can't move forward. I'm feeling stuck. And so what it's also keeping the person from doing is being their authentic self, which I call their brilliance. It's being their quirky self that does forget things perhaps, or like has a, quirk around something, and is the generator of like the ideas, is the person who, gets the understanding. And so, but that person's blocked and suffocated because of this web. So the first thing to do is to really get clear on unlocking a person's brilliance. And that becomes getting clear on what you want, which can be a difficult thing to get clear on because it triggers your fear, which we also have to get clear on. Just those 2 pieces. And the step number 2 is reframing self-limiting belief so that you have step number 3, the ability to actually prioritize what's the most important thing now. And what I understand from cognitive behavior therapy, it's really about being able to laser in on what's the most important thing at this moment, prioritizing that and understanding there's 100 other things and it's okay, but I'm lasering in, and that importance is driving my behavior. and owning that. And when we can get to that, we can say, this thing for my business or this thing for my nonprofit is the most important thing for today, and I have to do it. And I'm going to override what the imposter or the perfectionist or the distraction is saying because I'm so laser focused. And getting to that is where I help people get to. So those are 3 of the 8 steps that I help people really figure out. Yeah.
I'm curious because I'm thinking about what would be the entry point. I can relate to all 3 of those. I do. And that whole thing, especially when you talk about laser focus, that's something I've been really diligent about. I would say the last year and a half extra. I mean, like I've always been strategic and figured I have this plan and stuff, but I can identify with everything you've said. But for me, when I'm in that laser focus, man, I feel like I'm going, okay, but what if that person needs something right now? Like one of my team members, right? And I'm thinking, what if I didn't answer? They'll figure it out. Or it can wait, right? Because I promised I would get this done. And they also need whatever this is, or the client needs this. And yesterday I had like this, I mean, I'm doing this in my head while I'm going, head down, stay focused. You set this was your priority. It's your priority. Why would you doubt your priority? You were very thoughtful when you set your priority, right? It's not like I'm bouncing around without a brain, right? So, but at the end of the day, and I shared this with my colleague this morning when we hopped on a call to coordinate something, I said, what a great day yesterday. Like we connected for like 5 seconds apiece when we needed something. Man, it was just in a flow. We weren't interrupting. There was no doubt. People were solid. But that's not always the case. So if I were to listen to this triad, right? Imposter, perfectionism, distractionism, I can see how they bleed into each other. What is the typical entry point when people go, I've had enough, I need you?
Yes. Oh gosh. So I love the context that you gave for yesterday. I want to dive into that, but I'm going to answer your question. I'm like, oh, that's so juicy. So juicy. Well, one of the things let me answer the question first. Where do people enter? So I think people enter when they feel like,
hey there, everybody. I want to take just a minute out of this episode of the No Labels, No Limits podcast to tell you that we are officially opening the Sandbox membership in September. So if you're not already on our mailing list, please click the link below to either sign up for the membership or get on the waiting list for the membership. And if you click the link, you'll find more information about what's included, what our plans are, and better yet, you'll be on early enough to help decide what is most important to you to experience in the first 3 to 6 months of the membership. So don't wait. Click the link below and join us in the Sandbox where fun happens. We get to do a little R&R, little learning, support one another, and really grow and expand in ourselves, in our lives, and impact the world in a profound way. So come on over, join us.
Okay, so I'll tell you where I felt, and then I think it kind of connotes where other people feel. It's like, that there's something so badly that you're meant to do or to have or to experience, and you recognize that you've really exhausted everything that you know how to do, and that there's got to be something else out there. So there's almost like an openness. And then almost like you run into the thing. You run into the book, you run into the coach, you run into the experience. But there is this sense of like almost a surrender to there's got to be another way. I've just exhausted everything, and yet I'm not giving up on this thing. Like there's got to be more support. And then I find that people run into the support. And that's how it happened for me too. But there is that point of like, I just believe in this. There's more, and it's affecting their self-esteem. They're noticing it. It's affecting their sense of self, and they're noticing it. And it's like they're on a quest. Is generally where people find me. Or
Their
they've
own
run into
hero's
something that I've
journey.
said. Exactly. Or they've run into something that I've said that sparked that hero's journey awareness of like, oh gosh, I've run into, just like I ran into, do you speak to yourself as if you're your own best friend? I like ran into a wall, and then it leads to that hero's journey of like, how do I overcome that experience?
But speaking to yourself like you're your own best friend is so powerful. One of the tools I've used to help me, like when I feel like I'm really pushing myself, like I'm going, you would never do this to a coworker. You would never go, rah, 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 work harder, do more, right? So I've taken my foot off the gas on some things. It freaks me out a little because it's that drive to make sure everything's good. But I realized when I can look and see a picture of myself when I'm between 5, 3 and that young age, I'm going, you would never say or make that child do that. Stop it. Be nice to yourself. And or when I'm in an argument, like if I feel like this tension between my husband and I, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, look at that little boy's face, right? I have a picture of him when he's in like first grade or kindergarten. I'm thinking, that kid's full of mischief. He's not here to cause trouble. You're just not communicating, right? But that thing about how would you talk to a child that you loved, your own best friend, whatever. So, I mean, that question you were asked is it's so valuable. And people, I hope you don't think of it as being a throwaway question, because it's almost the door that you walk through.
Yes, Sarah, I just had a wave of so many emotions as a mom of a 5-year-old. That is that's a very tender question, because I am also in the midst of, and I want to say just in terms of the practice, the type of practice that I do, what you're speaking to is really inner child work, quite frankly. And it is the ability to recognize, and what you have demonstrated so beautifully is seeing the humanity and the inner child in someone else, which really means that you also see the inner child within yourself, to be able to recognize that in someone else, which is so wonderful in terms of how you relate to yourself. I just want to give you kudos on that in terms of just a wellness check. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And to be able to see that level of depth within a person is truly profound, because it will shift how you respond to them. And it's important because, just holding on to that, because the listener may be a parent as well, is that our little people, and my daughter is 5, and sometimes throughout little micro moments, she doesn't seem 5, she seems like 25, no. Right?
And wonder, where are you from?
What has happened? And what just happened like 10 seconds ago where you were 5, and now we're like in this weird chaos period. And it is to remember and to see her as 5, and to remember that she's seeing the world for the first time, and to really find that within myself, and that is something that I'm very much actively learning and working on myself. It's like reparenting myself as I'm parenting my child, of how would I have wanted to be handled. And I also point that out because it really is the inner child that we are healing through all of these different, whether you talk about very scientifically or you talk about it very spiritually, it is the inner person that we are healing. So much of what we are healing is how we were parented. And so how we relate to ourselves as adults really does matter, because again, it goes back to our operating system. It is how we operate in the world. And so we have the opportunity to, just continuing along with this theme, reparent ourselves in so many ways.
I'm going to ask you to niche down a little here, because everything we've talked about applies generally across the board. I don't know. I rarely hear men say they have imposter syndrome.
Agreed.
So let's take that.
So does the social science says they more women than men for sure. Yes, but not statistically. I'm not the statistician, but we do statistically experience more often.
But I do see some that try to who are afraid, right? And so they try to be perfect to have the same effect as solving imposter, right? But
own culture.
At any rate, but I want to niche down and stay with women, but let's talk about Black women, because let's talk about how that experience has its own nuances.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it has, so it's a very big question that I don't want to make it sound like it's monolithic, like every Black woman has the same experience. I just want to set that as the framework and context. However, there are culturally things that as Black women we have experienced that I think if we were to take a survey, we would agree like, wow, collectively, we would answer it the same way, which might be distinctly different than how someone else would answer the same survey. And so, and I say it like that, black and white, because at the end of the day, right, exactly, no pun intended, but also because at the end of the day, it's really a human experience around collective stories. So, absolutely. You know what I mean? And so, absolutely. Yeah, it's like our collective story. So like collectively, we could say our experience has been, and I specifically work with high achieving Black women. And what does that mean? That means women who are, really looking to move up in whatever up is for them. And they are looking for the support to do that. So it could be within their business, start a business. It could be within their nonprofit. They're looking to like expand it. They want to become better fundraisers, whatever it is they're like looking to do, generally with a professional dream. And they're feeling stuck. And so, within that, sorry, I got a little looped, but around answering the question, but, I did. Can we pause for just a moment? Is that possible?
We can pause, but I don't think you got looped. I'm following.
I'm sorry.
It makes perfect.
Are you? Because I looped
actually
myself
like how you answer questions. It's how my brain works. So
okay.
Carry on.
I'm like, I just looped myself. Okay. So, but going back to the broader question around Black women, and I niched down in that way because, sorry, I really did get looped here, but I'm going to bring it back to the idea that collectively we can answer things like working twice as hard and expecting half, or we have to manage our anger. Oh, I know where I was going. It's coming back to me. High achieving women, however they want to answer that, whatever that looks like for them, high achieving women. And yes. Okay. That puts a plug in that. But the point is that there is this desire to move ahead and they're feeling stuck by these three thoughts and these three triads. And the triads take on like a uniqueness of their own in that the uniqueness of their own in that we have a collective story. Essentially, that's it. We have a collective story, and I'm getting a little bit loopy with it. And I can feel that because one of the things that I want to move away from as a Black woman, quite frankly, is that it's like an us thing. You know what I mean? And so when I answer the question,
just differently experienced.
It's not. It's just differently experienced. And so as I sometimes as I get into the microism of it, I feel like I'm talking myself out of it and then in of it. And it's like, what it is a human experience that,
I just love you. This is how my brain works.
It's like,
I'm crazy.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, this is a human experience that we collectively could say when we're in a group of people who, don't look like us, it feels like oftentimes we've internalized these stories about people don't want us here because it's oftentimes a lived experience, or it could be, or you're not certain if it is, or what's happening. But it does feel like a frenetic experience when, quite frankly, oftentimes the vast majority of the people do want whomever it is there. And that's why the person is in the seat, and so it's like helping a category of people who are Black women to disinternalize these stories at the end of the day, to let go of the internalization that I'm not enough because of a particular reason, or because of a lived experience, or because of a trauma that was experienced at a particular time that we're still living. And so much of it is intergenerational and learned behavior. And so,
well, and then there's a lot, like if you break a generational belief, and it's not easy to do that, but if you do that, there are other costs for doing that psychically, right? Like, okay, what's your family do with you? So if you're already feeling like you might not fit in where you are you going to run the risk of losing what you know you have? I mean, these are for everybody. These are big things. Like when someone says, well, I want this, I want to be successful and it would look like this. There's that subconscious that's going, really? Are you willing to put this at risk to have this? And then you overlay other lived experiences on that, right? And it's different. Like you said, it's just not all Black women. All Black women have individual lives, right? And so it's all different.
Right.
But it really is that unpacking of the lies within a story that collectively weigh on us. And
Exactly.
and then I think people just, in general, I'm thinking, okay, I remember going, and so this is out of context, but it kind of made me feel a similar way. I can speak a little Spanish. At this point, I was in my 20s and I'm working in a warehouse and most everybody there, I'm living in San Diego. So some people were coming back and forth across the border. They had green cards. But what they like to do on Friday mornings is let's go to the racetrack, right? So one day they said, you want to come with us? And I'm thinking, well, I don't know. Okay, I'll go, right? Now I'm in Mexico. I'm at the racetrack, the horse races. And I'm with two of the guys I work with. And all of a sudden I realize I'm going, this sucks. There are very few women here. There are hardly any white women here. And I understand what's being said. I can't necessarily speak as fast, but I do understand what's being said. And I felt safe because those guys were like my guys. But I also thought, you know what? This is a sucky feeling. So my thing was, I need to speak Spanish better. Right? Which I did. But the undertext is, it's dangerous. You can feel
really dangerous. That's the essence. And what I think is so important about the conversation being Black women and it being about the human experience is because what you just contextualized is the human experience of feeling endangered.
Right.
Around. I feel like at any moment, but I also
sideways.
feel like maybe I have to talk to myself like these are actually humans, but they're not. I mean, they are, but they're saying things you can hear, you understand that are putting you at threat, or even just feeling like I'm the only woman. You have to now see yourself through a different psychological lens than you've ever had to see yourself before. And that is exhausting because the body is feeling the trauma of the danger or the potential latent danger that could be hidden. And so it's exhausting.
So that's why when you talked about trauma earlier, my ears perked up because I thought, yeah, what is that? Even if it's not. Anyway, so that makes me wonder, how does that fuel these three things?
So it fuels it because the three things are inner dialogue. Well, the three things are inner dialogue. They are all inner dialogue based, meaning it is the way that someone is relating to themselves. I'm going to put that in context. Imagine that you are brushing your teeth by yourself in your bathroom. It is you, and your mind is not on your removal of your plaque from the night before. It is, why did I say that stupid thing? Oh my God, they are judging me. What are they going to say? What's happening? I knew I shouldn't have done that. I'm not enough to even make this happen. I'm not worthy. That's an imposter moment. That's an imposter syndrome. That's perfectionism moment, maybe distracted around, I always do this. I'm losing. That is a whole hijacked moment, right? That is like a whole moment that's happening. Now, that is in essence traumatizing the nervous system because the nervous system
is shooting right up,
right? And so a person who is doing that and has a habit of doing that is living through that all the time. Now, part of that lived experience might be that I also have a job interview. I'm a Black woman. I'm at the very top of my game. I'm the only of the only in all the rooms. Not only I'm the only woman, I'm the only Black woman. I'm the only woman who's ever sat in the seat. No one's ever even considered a Black woman before. And I'm younger and, all the things. And I have this unconscious, yet I'm hearing it, alarm in the back of my mind that these people really don't want me. These people really don't want me, but they do want me. They don't want me. They do. I have to represent all Black women. Like, what's happening? So there's like an extra layer of conversation that's also happening along with the human
Yep.
re-traumatization that's happening. And so this person is like, really, as they're brushing their teeth, living this inner dialogue, which is, as you're saying, on a physiological level, their cortisol is spiking. So all those things are happening. They're envisioning, a traumatized type of vision, which they're then also, and we can talk very metaphysical. They're also now attracting all of that energy into their life and into their experience. And that's a habit. And that's a way of seeing themselves in the world. It's a belief. And so at the core, it is who they believe themselves to be. And that's why this is so very important, because it is as deep as a core belief that, quite frankly, also keeps them very protected in a very strange way.
But it's also hopeful, right? It's a belief, and we're in charge. We are in charge of what we let in our mind. So when you're saying now you've become so familiar with these things, right? That's basically you saying, hello, mind, I'm the boss here.
I'm the boss here.
Yeah, I'm the boss.
I'm the boss here.
I appreciate that you want me to freak out right now, but obviously they want me. It might even feel like a lie when you're telling yourself that, but it wasn't an accident that you were invited to the room.
Exactly.
But that's not, you can say that easy when you're on the other side of fighting that demon. But when you're in the middle of it, it's like, oh my God.
The demon is very big. It's false evidence appearing real every time. Fear, fear, fear. And again, just answering the question wholly, as Black women, we oftentimes have a contextual framework, a lived experience. It's very similar, where culturally speaking, it can be helpful to speak to someone who has had that lived experience, who, understands the nuances, and to be able to say, wow, this has been very real for me. Beyond that, I would say it is a human experience, because everything else is very human about it outside of the cultural context.
Exactly. Well, and I think if we pick different cultures, there will be nuances of that. It'll be different, right? Whatever the overlay is on that particular culture. This is a funny story. I was interviewing this gal, and this is a reverse on the U.S., right? It cracked me up. So she grew up in India, and they have family that lives here I want to say the upper eastern seaboard. So they had very successful relatives that live there, and they're living in India, and her father is a doctor. Anyway, he wants to move the family here. But all the time growing up, we would watch American movies. We thought, okay, that would be so cool. And we want candy. She goes, here's what my parents did. They would say, oh, those Americans, you eat candy, your teeth are going to fall out, right? So she says, so fast forward, we didn't get our candy. We had to eat healthy. So fast forward, they put her in school. So she's been super educated. She's got a really great, I think she went in like second or third grade. Her English was perfect, better than her classmates, right? She was above average in all of her studies. But I said, how was that? And she goes, what really got me? I kept looking at my classmates' teeth. They were all good. But look, right. She had this whole thing, like she would come here.
Exactly.
It would be different. She was good with that. But she said, I was just so scared that my teeth would start to rot when I got here. Right. Look at the overlay on that. Right. So, like those stories are just
the stories
crazy.
And profoundly exactly the same. How it is the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we hold on to. And she literally had to, at some point, reparent herself and say, like, my teeth are going to be just fine if I eat, because perhaps it could have been at 25, she had a lot of guilt around, the way she ate something, or like it could have something that she really had to like let go of, because it was a learned belief that, quite frankly, was her parents making up a way to give her boundaries. And it became,
here's why,
it became like a personal identity. Isn't that incredible?
It doesn't take much. As little kids, right? We are good storytellers.
Absolutely.
We're magicians in that way.
Absolutely. I love that.
I just think what you're saying is so hopeful for all of us, because it is doable.
It is
doable.
It is. And I really love the hope line, because it is doable, and it takes tough inner work. However, it's tough beating yourself up. So you might as well do the tough work of healing and, really beginning to love yourself, like yourself, because it is a very different inner experience when you feel like you have a different dialogue that says, I am enough to like myself in this moment.
And you can laugh at it. Like someone goes, you're so weird. You're going, okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm good with me. Yeah.
Good with me.
I'm good with me. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit here.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to shift after that as well. So I want you to share with us, like, say someone wants to work with you or learn more about you. What is the entry point for doing that?
Absolutely. So there's an entry point currently, and then there's an entry point that will be more of an ongoing entry point in the future. The entry point right now is everything is one on my website, which is inspirebrandconsulting.com. And I have a quiz that someone can take that, based on, I think it's about 10 questions, about 3 minutes, gives you just a snapshot on which one of those mindsets might be your more predominant, what I call your confidence killer. What is causing you to really what might be the cause of you to hold back in terms of those 2 mindsets? And, it's kind of like a People magazine quiz, or just gives you some insight as to what is imposter syndrome, what is perfectionism, what is distractionism, and how might you begin to relate with that. So that's really the entry. And then I have a discovery call that is a free opportunity if someone wants to extend the conversation. That's a complimentary call where we'll dive into really looking at where someone is, where they want to be, and what is that confidence killer that's causing that impasse, and talking about how to move past that. So there's the discovery call that's there.
So I would say that's all low barrier. It's like, it's easy.
Yes.
Take the quiz.
All free. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quiz, reach out. Exactly.
So I'm saying that for anybody who's going, well, I'll do it later. Now's a really good time to do it. Later.
Yeah.
Later never comes. It's always later.
That's right.
So this is the other shift I want to ask you is, I wanted to know if you had a chance to listen to a previous podcast episode and who it was with and what's kind of stuck out to you from that.
Yes, absolutely. So I sure did. And the person that I heard, it was a divine blessing, because I kind of scrolled and picked, and the topic was ADHD, which is, as you know, near and dear to my heart. And it was Dr. Tamara Rosier. And the reason that it's not only so profound, because she is so profound and incredibly gifted in terms of her understanding and teaching and depth of empathy and compassion for people who have ADHD and neurodivergence. It is because that book, Your Brain Is Not Broken, literally saved my life. It was in fall of 2022, and we had just moved as a family, and which means like every system was hijacked. I also had a little one. It was a lot on my plate, more than I realized, and my life intersected with perhaps I have ADHD. And I did, and I do. And that book was the lead into, perhaps this is something that's very real for you. I got tipped to maybe coaching ADHD, and it caused me to do a Google search, and her book was what came up. I read the book, and it was affirmative and like life changing. So it was divine that was the one that I listened to. And what stood out was, one, I think that for me, there's so many wonderful helpers in the world. Her helping is so wonderfully scientific, like through almost therapy through the science of understanding what's happening. And it made me also think about, what do I distinctly do around, this idea of distractionism, which is really around helping people to reorient the story that they tell themselves about neurodivergence, about their experience of neurodivergence. And I took away more science from that episode. I took away affirmation hope, the same hope, Sarah, that you talked about, that, because also she talked about that she's one of the first books that talk about the emotional impact of neurodivergence, ADHD. And that's where I was. And that's what resonated so much with me. This is sort of emotional experience of it. which really also means that someone is also believing something about themselves. And so the ability, bringing it again full circle, the hope and the optimism of being able to shift beliefs around what is someone's brilliance, because ADHD, the fact that the opposite of perfectionism, quite frankly, is the fact that somebody cares so much that they want things to be so, correct and so fulfilled. And it's also what drives someone to know a lot of information and to go down incredible portals. Impostor syndrome just means that somebody really cares so deeply about their belonging that they probably are able to incorporate other people and be very empathetic and have a whole. So on the other side of these, what feel like mountainous terrain oftentimes is wisdom. And on the other side of ADHD is people who are so brilliant. And if and when they can let go of the story that something's wrong with me, I am broken, hence the title of her book, and embrace who they are and their quirks and get coaching and therapy and whatever else is needed as intervention to create the systems that their prefrontal cortex don't make. They live lives that are just above quality. It's they are the Steve Jobs, they are the unicorns, they are the things. And so they are the light workers, the sensitives, the people who make a difference. So that's what I got out of that episode. It was lovely.
I'll make sure Tamara hears that.
Please.
So I'm going to pause here. We're going to put a pin in this conversation. I don't think it'll be the last time we speak. I hope it is not. I have two questions. One is there something you wished I'd asked you that I had not?
No, I so enjoyed this conversation, even the part where I got a little looped. And it's interesting
when I got this is what I call external processing.
Yeah, it really felt that. It really did. And I keep actually saying that to myself. I was I actually was going down such a deep portal of externalization that I kind of had to back myself out, and I did. And that's that was a word in therapy today. It was externalization. So thank you for labeling that even further for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it.
So no,
I think it's real. It's
yeah.
But you affirmed me when you did that.
Thank you. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
Okay. So then my last question. Yeah. You were good on questions.
Really good. Really good. Such a good.
Leave a word of wisdom or a thought nugget you would like to leave the audience with today.
I would like to leave the audience with the idea that, oftentimes we say know thyself, but there's always this question of well, how? How do I know myself? What does that even mean? So I want to leave a couple of things. One, it is true. Know thyself. The more you know about yourself, the more you like about yourself, the more you love about yourself, the more you will love your life, the more you will feel good about who you are. The second piece I want to say about that is that it is possible. That's not just hocus pocus that happens. There's processes that you go through to shed beliefs that keep you wedded to I'm not enough. And there are processes that allow you to adopt beliefs that say, wow, I am enough. I can like myself. I can be less judgmental on myself and other people. That's not just la la land. There's processes that help to do that, and they work. So that's the thing I want to leave is know yourself and know that it's possible to know yourself. And there's helpers to help you do that. And Sarah's one of them.
I don't think there's anything I can add to that except to say, if you like this episode, please share it. I think this was a rich conversation. You showed up so real. I'm not editing out that stuff anyway, just so you know, heads up.
I love it. No, it's fine. It's good.
Oh, come on. It's good. Yeah, you don't have to be perfect.
Right. Exactly. Yes. I love it.
Show up and be ourselves. But really share this with someone else that you think might benefit from hearing from it. Check out the website. We'll have it in the show notes. Take the quiz. And don't accept less for your life than you really want. You should have what you want. You can have what you want. And it might be a little uncomfortable getting there, but honestly, it's worth it, you know? So with that, let's wrap this episode.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Boxx. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahboxx.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.